Okay, so my name is Leslie Roche. Can you hear me in the back? Okay, I feel like I'm screaming in my own ears here. Okay, so my name is Leslie Roche. I'm a postdoctoral researcher in Ken Tate's lab. I just finished my PhD at Davis, and I'm sticking around to work on some of the projects we're going to talk about later today. And so, just for right now, I'm going to talk about oak management impacts on multiple ecosystem services. And I'm going to talk about this in the context of a project that several of us have been working on. And this project sort of formed the foundational conversations that we've been having over the last couple of years that really led to expanding our thinking and working with others with some of these specific grazing management projects we're going to take you out to later today. So, okay. So as both Ken and Justin mentioned earlier, during the mid-20th century, we had this real focus on agricultural productivity goals, with limited attention paid to other non-focal services. And so, in California, these oak trees, these native woody species cover, were viewed as weeds. They were woody weeds of the landscape. They seemingly reduced production and forage production, therefore reducing livestock production, which is really important. And so, Ken showed this earlier, grass, not oaks, make your cows fat, because this was an important thing to private landowners, obviously, and, University of California services those people. And so this was, obviously a very intensive, iterative effort. Ken showed you, I think, this photo here. This is Forbes Hill as you drove in. Oh. Okay. As some of you drove in, you probably noticed that great big bald hill out here. We call that Forbes Hill. And this was that hill, I believe it was early 60s. This is that hill. It was a densely, naturally wooded. We had buckbrush, deerbrush, poison oak, some obviously live oak and blue oaks, and some foothill pines out there. And they went out and they cleared using mechanical methods, repeated burning, and herbicide application, to create that homogeneous landscape, which to optimize agricultural production. Well, obviously, nowadays we have a very diversified interest in rangeland ecosystems. You look around the room, it's very diverse interests. Society, as Ken mentioned, is expecting more from rangelands. Also, private owners are expecting more also. Len Huntsinger's group out of UC Berkeley has found that, in the past 20 years, interest among private landowners in ecosystem services has considerably and significantly increased. And this is important because these California oak woodlands, or otherwise known as hardwood rangelands, which occupy 16% of California, are largely privately owned. So really, to successfully do this, we need to work with private owners. And so this system does provide a multitude of ecosystem services. Some of the speakers earlier alluded to some of these. Just to start off, this is one of the most species-rich ecosystems in California. We have over 300 vertebrate, 5,000 invertebrate, and 2,000 plant species in the system. Also, it has important water supply services. The majority of California's drinking water supply, over 85%, passes through these watersheds. Also, we have recreation values, and obviously agricultural production values. Over 70% of the state's forage base is produced on these lands, supporting a $3 billion cattle industry in California. And so the challenge is to manage for these multiple services and associated functions in order to not only sustain the ecological health of the system, but also those dependent ranch enterprises. And so, we're not, as other speakers have alluded to, we're not just managing for one service or one at a time, but we're really trying to put all those pieces of the puzzle together and managing for multiple outcomes. And I'm going to talk a little bit about this in the platform of state and transition models. And for those of you who maybe aren't familiar with these are just management models that are one way of cataloging, the ecological information we have about a site and that site's dynamics. based on the ecological site concept, which is just a sort of redefinition and broadening of the old range site concept. And it's one way of assessing the risks and benefits of different management practices and how we can shift different states between these different boxes. And so in doing this, and some of the challenges is, just a couple of the challenges, and I have to limit here, we only have so much time. We're looking at these management impacts, we have to look across a variety of both spatial and temporal scales. So not only, those very important mechanistic plot scales and really understanding what's going on, like Valerie just talked about, but also, scaling it up to larger scales, even landscape scales, that are, relevant to management. What does this really do at the landscape scale? And then also, finding those metrics of these ecosystem services that are not only somewhat easily and rapidly measurable, but also reflect functional differences. The metric needs to tell us something. It needs, we can't just blindly measure things. We really need to know that it's reflecting functional differences. And so we've been working here at the field station. That's where we are right here. Sutter Buttes are right over here. I think it got cut off. About 2,500 hectares. It ranges in elevation from about 100 meters down by the Yuba River up to about 600 meters. The ecological site here is classified as a Sierra Nevada gravelly loam foothill ecological site. And this is a representation of the state and transition model for this site. This is based on a lot of work that's been done at UC Berkeley by Jim Bartolome and Lynn Huntsinger and Mel George, UC Davis, Richard Plant, lots of people. So this is just a representation of all of those ideas. And a lot of those people are in the audience. I hope I've satisfied their, their needs here. And so basically you can see these are the different states that a site can achieve, and I'm just focusing on oak management impacts. And so basically, mechanically removing those oaks and moving that undisturbed woodland condition to that, completely open annual grassland, like Forbes Hill. And then, those reverse restoration pathways. For today, I'm going to really simplify this down and just talk about these three major states. We have the undisturbed oak woodland, the savanna, and the annual grassland. And you might have noticed some of the posters around here really talk about some of those phases and transitions just within this box here. So there's a lot of work going on this topic, and this is just sort of scratching the surface, obviously. So what we did was, this is a map of the field station here. This is that big bare mountain, Forbes Hill. Oh, we're right about, okay, I cannot keep that steady. We're right around here somewhere. So we went out into these different conditions. We have these unthinned oak woodland pastures. We have variously thinned oak savanna pastures, and of course that open grassland. And we installed permanently marked, hierarchically nested, called Whitaker plots, so vegetation and soil sampling plots. And this is a photo of one of our densely wooded sites, heavy poison oak understory. This is a thin savanna site. This picture is taken over here somewhere. And then this is some of our vegetation plots. And today I'm just going to report some preliminary data. We're still kind of crunching the numbers on just only 16 of these large nested plots. And these plots, they're about 20 by 30 meters. Okay, in addition to looking at things like species richness, diversity, composition, and cover, above the soil, we actually also went out and dug pits. And so we have multiple pits at each of these plots. And obviously we did profile descriptions. We collected soil samples by genetic horizon and looked at things like total carbon and total nitrogen, available nutrients. We had some embedded studies on these projects. We had a master's student that had some very specific questions about aggregate stability and the forms of carbon in these systems. And then a slew of other metrics. Today, again, just kind of scratch the surface here. I'm just going to report data that we've collected and analyzed based on the basically that A horizon, so that basically that first 5 centimeters. But there's a lot of texture, a lot of spatial heterogeneity to this study. We also have some temporal metrics. We looked at soil moisture and soil temperature over time in these variously managed plots. And so just going to walk you through some slides, show you some preliminary results here. These are that undisturbed woodland, that blue oak savanna, annual grassland. Very simplified model, just sort of a platform for us to see the potential trade-offs or synergies in these different management types. And so first off, carbon sequestration, very hot topic. Especially for, I guess, in academia, it's a very hot topic. So the ecosystem service here, looking at nutrient cycling, and so total carbon. So, looking at basically soil organic carbon in the ground. And we see here, we saw higher total carbon concentrations in these variously wooded sites versus that open annual grassland. And this basically this jives with what has been done here in the past. Randy Dahlgren's done a lot of work showing that these oaks do sequester a significant amount of carbon beneath their canopies. Along those same lines of that increased carbon, we also see increased nitrogen pools. In fact, over 90% of the nitrogen pool in the system is under these oak trees. And so we have this island of fertility effect. And so, again, you'll see in these oak trees, we have higher total nitrogen concentrations than in that open annual grassland. So starting to see some of the trade-offs. Removing these oak canopies, they might have seen increased production, but perhaps we're losing some of those, those nutrient stores. Okay, so we looked at a slew of ecosystem services. I'm just presenting a handful here. Water supply. Remember, California, over 85% of the drinking water passes through these watersheds. And so, looking at these various conditions, we saw immense differences in infiltration capacity. And so, just looking at the woodland versus the open grassland, 120 centimeters per hour versus only 20. In some of these plots, we saw as much as 400 or 500 centimeters per hour. Now, earlier I said, we need to find these metrics that reflect functional differences. And in terms of water supply, this metric, actually infiltration, likely does not reflect a functional difference. Seems a little counterintuitive. This is very specific to this site. These soils were formed on metavolcanic parent material, and so we have about 10% iron here. So really strong soils, really high aggregate stability. And so the 100-year rainfall event for this area the infiltration is only 4 centimeters per hour. So even that seemingly, compromised state of 20 centimeters per hour is well above that maximum event. And this is very, very specific to the site because we have such strong aggregate stability. Now, Valerie talked, a lot about, why are we seeing these impacts in different sites? We would see, potentially different results at a site like at Hopland Research Extension Center over in Mendocino County. This site here is formed on sedimentary parent materials and very highly erodible soils. And so during the 50s and 60s, there was a group out of UC Davis in the Department of LAWR that started these experimental watersheds, where they went into these different watersheds and they experimentally mechanically removed and burned portions of the watersheds. And what they found was, they found some really positive benefits. They found increased forage production. They found increased water yields in terms of peak storm runoff. They found an extended dry season base flow. So, oh wow, these are great pluses. However, I mentioned these are highly erodible soils. This is a photo from those same sites. They also found substantial and considerable, significantly increased sedimentation and erosion rates. This is a slip here that we're looking at. This, of course, can lead to stream channel impairment, water quality impairment, and obviously has consequences for downstream activities for wildlife habitat. So, some of the trade-offs we would see here at a different site. Now, returning to this field station. We also looked at the herbaceous plant community, so looking at just diversity. And this measure here, it's an index, it's a Shannon-Weiner index. It's on a log scale, so just keep that in mind. These don't look like big differences, but it's a log scale. And so we're seeing greater diversity in the blue oak and woodland conditions versus in that open annual grassland. Additionally, we're also seeing some unique species that don't overlap in these open annual grasslands. And then finally, agricultural productivity, a very important ecosystem service. You can see, right away, kind of pops out at you. You can see the trade-off here. We have, much greater annual net primary productivity in the open annual grassland versus the woodland or savanna sites. So you can see, you can start to see why, there was all that clearing activity. And it's still a threat today where we have, perceived negative impacts of woody cover on vegetation. To give you an idea of some of the, the longer-term cumulative effects of this, we're very lucky here at the station. In addition to, they have long-term records of annual net primary productivity and weather data. They also, keep records of their stocking rates here on the station. And so this is a record of their stocking rates at these various conditions. We have the unthinned oak woodland, the variously thin to 30%, oak savanna, thin to 10% oak cover, and that, again, Forbes Hill, that cleared open grassland. And you can see here, looking at the stocking rate, so basically the number, the amount of land it takes to support one animal unit, so one cow-calf for 1 year, dramatically drops with that increased thinning gradient. It takes about 10 hectares, or I think that's like 20 acres, something like that, to support one animal unit for 1 year in these densely wooded, versus only about 3 hectares in the cleared open grassland. So huge gains in carrying capacity, obviously huge gains in economic efficiency. So you can see why that's really attractive, those increases. But remembering some of those other slides I just showed, this is just summarizing those oak woodland and savanna values versus those open annual grassland values. We see that oaks, they are important in maintaining potentially valuable ecosystem services. Those services we may come to value down the road. Saw greater total in and total carbon concentrations under these oaks, greater infiltration rates, which may not reflect functional difference in terms of water supply, but does have ramifications for rooting depth and other services. And then also greater diversity. In a companion study, we've done some work looking at purple needlegrass distribution relative to oak trees. Purple needlegrass is one of our flagship native species here in California, one of the few that's really hung on, and we've seen significantly increased density of these bunch grasses directly beneath oaks versus out in that open annual grassland. So these oaks are also providing potential refugia for native species. And so really it's a story of balancing or blending these production and conservation goals and balancing those trade-offs. I use sort of the state and transition model as a platform, as a way to explicitly identify what are our potential goals or desired outcomes, or what really can we do here. And it's a way of explicitly recognizing and acknowledging that, we can only go so far before we cross a service threshold. We can't get back very easily. It's kind of like, if you've ever been in downtown Sacramento, you take that one-way street and you realize, oh, a couple blocks back, I wanted to actually, I think I want to go back there. No, you gotta go up, you gotta take a left. On this road, you gotta go all the way around the Capitol to get back. It's not easy, and it's not inexpensive. If we completely clear those oak woodlands, there's been a lot of work done here and across California that we can do it, but it's really expensive to regenerate those oaks. And so this is valuable not only for managers, but also for those governmental and non-governmental entities that are interested in allocating management and conservation funds to really visualize what are we getting with these different management practices. And finally, and moving on. Pelayo, Ken, Valerie, Justin, all of us have alluded to, really integrating this human dimension, really making sure that, us, the nerd herd, have relevance. And so, and Mark's going to talk a little bit about this and how, really to make sure that these strategies, and that not only that we understand how to do it, but that it can actually be effective within the human dimension, and really understanding, how we can work with managers and how we can be relevant and contribute and also have a working relationship. And so, this is been a pretty big project. I hope I haven't missed anybody. The field station staff here has been, immensely just invaluable. We can't, put a price on how much they've helped us. They've done everything from install plots to IDing plants. Just a lot of work's gone into this. And this work was funded by the Kearney Foundation of Soil Science. And I guess I'll take any questions now.